Romance movies are supposed to make us feel warm and fuzzy, right? But what if I told you that some of the most iconic love stories from the past are actually filled with toxic behavior, manipulation, and downright creepy moments? In this video, we're diving into 20 romantic movies that might have made you swoon back in the day, but now they haven't aged well at all. From emotional blackmail and power imbalances to stalking and gaslighting, these films are full of red flags you just can't ignore. Let's take a closer look at the so-called romance that turned out to be anything but healthy. Let's start with a movie that once had fans swooning over sparkly vampires and forbidden love. But looking at it today, Twilight feels less like a love story and more like a manual for unhealthy relationships. Edward controls Bella's every move, watches her sleep without her consent, and isolates her from friends and family. Their bond is built on obsession and codependency, not trust or mutual respect. It's a fantasy for some, but a red flag parade for others. Coming in at number 19 is The Notebook. Often cited as one of the greatest romantic films of all time, it's remembered for that iconic kiss in the rain. But dig a little deeper, and you'll see a relationship rooted in manipulation. Noah threatens to kill himself if Ellie doesn't agree to go out with him. Later, they argue constantly and seem to thrive on drama. What's framed as passion is actually emotional instability, and stalking is somehow passed off as devotion. At number 18, we revisit the classic musical Grease. Catchy songs and slick-back hair aside, the love story here is pretty troubling. Sandy literally changes everything about herself, her appearance, her values, even her personality, just to win Danny back. Instead of meeting halfway, the message is clear: if he won't change, she should. And somehow, we're expected to cheer for that? Number 17 is Beauty and the Beast, the 1991 animated version. Sure, it's Disney, and it's beautifully animated, but at its core, it's the story of a woman falling in love with her captor. Bella's isolated, manipulated, and slowly begins to care for the Beast, despite his violent behavior and imprisonment. It's been called magical, but it also echoes signs of Stockholm Syndrome. Love doesn't grow in a cage. At 16, we have 16 Candles, a teen comedy from the 80s that hasn't aged well at all. Casual racism, offensive stereotypes, and a disturbing subplot where a girl is taken advantage of while drunk and it's played for laughs. The film also objectifies underage characters and turns predatory behavior into a punchline. What once passed as edgy comedy now feels deeply inappropriate. Taking number 15 is Titanic, a visually stunning film with unforgettable music but also a questionable relationship at its center. Jack and Rose know each other for barely 2 days before he convinces her to abandon her family, her fiancé, and her entire social class. Yes, it's emotional and tragic, but also rushed and manipulative. Love at first sight, or just a reckless teenage rebellion? At number 14, we revisit Sweet Home Alabama. What seems like a charming Southern romance is actually a story about ghosting, emotional manipulation, and unresolved love triangles. The main character disappears from her husband's life without explanation, builds a new life, and returns only when it suits her. And somehow, he's expected to take her back. Forgiveness is beautiful, but this is emotional whiplash. Coming in at 13 is Pretty Woman, a fairy tale for some, but when you look closely, the story glorifies prostitution and completely ignores the massive power imbalance between the characters. He's a wealthy businessman, and she's a sex worker who's treated like a project to be fixed. The film tries to sell it as a modern Cinderella story, but it glosses over the real issues beneath the fantasy. At number 12, Cruel Intentions takes manipulation to the next level. Wealthy teenagers make bets about who can seduce whom, with virginity as a prize and emotional damage as collateral. The film is filled with lies, deceit, and even incestuous overtones, and yet it's somehow marketed as romantic. There's nothing romantic about cruelty dressed up in prep school uniforms. And finally, number 11 is Can't Hardly Wait, a high school party movie where a group of teenagers chase their crushes with zero awareness of consent or boundaries. The entire plot is built on stereotypes, drunken hookups, and shallow infatuations. What's worse is that it tries to pass these chaotic moments off as heartfelt romance. Watching it today feels more like a warning than a love story. Let's continue the countdown with number 10, a film that many once considered romantic and comforting. You've Got Mail seemed like a light-hearted story about two people falling in love online. But when you really think about it, Tom Hanks's character uses a false identity to secretly manipulate Meg Ryan while planning the downfall of her small, independent bookstore. The result? She loses everything except him, and somehow the movie wants us to root for this relationship. Rewatching it today, it doesn't feel like love. It feels like emotional sabotage with a smile. Coming in at number 9 is Almost Famous. A film adored for its nostalgic portrayal of the music world, yet at its core, it's disturbingly problematic. It follows underage girls being groomed and exploited by adult rock stars. One of them is literally traded in a poker game for $50 and a case of beer. It's presented with dreamy lighting and a cool soundtrack, but strip that away and you're left with a story of manipulation, power abuse, and the normalization of predatory behavior. At number 8, How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days brings us the tale of two people pretending to fall in love while secretly trying to sabotage each other. He wants to win a bet. She wants to write an article. The entire relationship is built on lies, manipulation, and cliché gender stereotypes. Sure, the chemistry is fun, but underneath the laughs is a toxic dynamic that teaches us nothing about real communication or mutual respect. Number 7 goes to Love, actually, a holiday favorite with plenty of heartwarming moments, or so it seems. Take a closer look and you'll notice a web of inappropriate relationships, fat-shaming, and unhealthy power dynamic. From a man silently stalking his best friend's wife to the Prime Minister falling for his much younger employee, the film romanticizes behavior that would be considered wildly inappropriate today. Sliding into number 6 is Dirty Dancing. It gave us unforgettable dance scenes and iconic music, but let's not overlook the age gap. Baby is just 17, while Johnny is 25. That's not just a detail, it's a serious red flag. Despite the passionate moments, the imbalance in age and experience casts a shadow over what's often portrayed as an innocent summer romance. At number 5, Overboard takes the concept of love to a twisted extreme. A man finds a woman with amnesia, lies to her about her identity, and convinces her that she's his wife and the mother of his children. She cooks, cleans, and raises his kids without knowing who she really is. Somehow, the film turns this disturbing setup into a feel-good comedy. But watching it now, it feels more like kidnapping and forced domestic labor than anything resembling love. Number 4 is Big, a movie about a boy who magically wakes up in a man's body. It's played as whimsical and charming until he begins a relationship with a grown woman. The romantic scenes are awkward enough, but when you remember that inside he's still a child, it becomes extremely unsettling. And even worse, the woman still seems interested after learning the truth. Taking the number 3 spot is Mrs. Doubtfire. While many remember it as a heartwarming story about a father who wants to stay close to his kids, the methods he uses are extreme. He disguises himself as an elderly nanny and deceives his entire family, all because he wasn't willing to step up when it mattered. Instead of showing personal growth or accountability, the film presents deception and manipulation as acts of love. At number 2, we revisit While You Were Sleeping. A lonely woman pretends to be the fiancée of a man in a coma, and while the family embraces her, she falls for his brother. It's a tangled web of lies, and yet she's treated as the sweet, quirky heroine. If the roles were reversed, the story would be far from romantic, it would be alarming. And finally, at number 1 is 50 First Dates. What starts off as a quirky romantic comedy quickly turns dark when you think about the consequences. A woman suffers from short-term memory loss, and every day she wakes up with no memory of her life. The man who claims to love her decides to build a relationship anyway and eventually marries her. She has a child, a home, a routine, all without ever remembering any of it. What sounds like devotion is actually horrifying when you imagine the fear she must feel every single morning. It's not love, it's control disguised as care. And there you have it, 20 romance movies that might have once made our hearts flutter, but now reveal a darker, more toxic side when seen through a modern lens. It's wild how many of these films shaped our idea of love while quietly normalizing manipulation, power imbalances, and behavior we'd never accept in real life. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up and let me know in the comments which of these movies shocked you the most. Or did we miss one that deserves to be on the list? Don't forget to subscribe for more eye-opening breakdowns like this one. Thanks for watching, and remember, real love isn't about drama or deception. It's about respect, trust, and honesty.